When I discovered the timestamp on my phone didn't match my mother's story about my sister's disappearance, I realized I'd been living in a carefully constructed lie for months. What I found in my sister's room that night would shatter everything I thought I knew about my family and force me to question whether my own mother was capable of the unthinkable. You know that moment when your entire world shifts and suddenly nothing makes sense anymore? When the ground beneath your feet just disappears? That's exactly what happened to me on a Tuesday morning that started like any other. I was scrolling through old photos of my sister Emma, missing her terribly, when my mother walked into the kitchen and dropped those 6 words that would change everything. But here's the thing that made my blood run cold. The timestamp on my phone showed she'd been missing for 3 months longer than my mother had told me, and that was just the beginning of what I was about to discover. Our house had always been the kind of place where breakfast happened in comfortable silence. Mom would hum while making coffee. I'd scroll through my phone, and until recently, Emma would be rushing around looking for her textbooks or complaining about her hair. Emma was my younger sister by 2 years, 21 to my 23, but she'd always been the more adventurous one. The one who'd disappear for weekend trips without much warning, who'd change her major 3 times, who'd fall in love with new cities and new people with the kind of passion that both worried and amazed me. So when she'd left in March for what Mom called a spontaneous trip to find herself, I wasn't entirely surprised. Emma had always been a free spirit. What surprised me was how calm Mom seemed about it all. "She needs space," Mom would say whenever I asked about calling Emma. "You know how she is. She'll come back when she's ready." And I believed her. Why wouldn't I? Mom had always understood Emma better than I did. They had this connection. They could communicate with just looks across the dinner table. They'd laugh at inside jokes I never quite got. But looking back now, I realized there were signs I should have noticed. The way Mom's hands would shake slightly when she'd mention Emma. How she'd change the subject whenever I suggested we call her together. The fact that Emma's room remained exactly as she'd left it. But Mom had quietly removed all the photos of Emma from the common areas of the house. I told myself it was grief, missing her. I had no idea it was something far more sinister. That Tuesday morning, I was eating cereal and scrolling through old photos of Emma and me at last year's lake house trip. I was smiling at one where Emma had photobombed my selfie with the most ridiculous face when Mom walked in with her coffee. "Your sister isn't coming back," Mom said, her voice as casual as if she were commenting on the weather. I looked up from my phone, my spoon halfway, to my mouth. "What do you mean?" Mom was stirring her coffee, not meeting my eyes. "I got a call yesterday. She's decided to stay wherever she is. Permanently." My heart started racing. "A call? From Emma? Why didn't you tell me? Can I talk to her?" "She specifically asked me not to give you her number. She said she needs a complete break from family right now." The words hit me like a physical blow. Emma, who texted me memes at 2 a.m., who called me whenever she had boy drama, who'd never gone more than a week without talking to me in our entire lives. She wanted nothing to do with me? I looked down at my phone, still open to that photo of Emma and me. The timestamp read, June 15th, 2023. Today was December 3rd, 2023. I started counting backward. March, April, May, June. My hand started shaking. "Mom," I said slowly, "when exactly did Emma leave?" She paused, her spoon clinking against the ceramic mug. "You know when. March. Spring break." But I was looking at that photo, taken in June, 3 months after Emma had supposedly left. "Mom, this photo was taken in June, at the lake house. We were all there together." The color drained from my mother's face. For the first time in months, she looked me directly in the eye, and what I saw there made my blood freeze. Fear, panic, and something else I'd never seen in my mother's eyes before. Guilt. "I think you're confused, honey. she said, but her voice was shaking now. That photo must be from last year. I held up my phone, zooming in on the corner where Emma had drawn June 2023 in the sand with her finger, grinning at the camera. Then explain this. Mom's coffee mug slipped from her hands, shattering on the kitchen floor, but she didn't move to clean it up. She just stood there, staring at me with the expression of someone whose carefully constructed world had just come crashing down. To understand why this discovery felt like the ground was literally disappearing beneath my feet, you need to know about our family dynamic. Emma and I weren't just sisters, we were best friends, confidants, partners in crime. Growing up, it was often just the three of us. Dad had left when Emma was 12, and Mom had thrown herself into being both parents. But instead of pulling apart, the three of us had become this incredibly tight unit. We had family movie nights every Friday. We took vacations together even as adults. And we shared everything. Everything. Emma had been going through a rough patch before she supposedly left. She'd broken up with her longtime boyfriend Marcus in February, and she was struggling in her graduate program. But we'd talked about it constantly. I'd been helping her through it, bringing her ice cream and listening to her cry. The Emma I knew would never just disappear without a word. She'd never cut me out of her life, especially during a difficult time. And she definitely wouldn't ask Mom to keep her contact information from me. But there was something else, something that made Mom's lie even more chilling. Emma had been seeing a therapist, Dr. Chen, for her anxiety. In one of our last conversations, Emma had mentioned that she was finally making progress, that she was feeling hopeful about the future. I'm starting to feel like myself again, she'd told me during our lake house trip in June. For the first time in months, I actually want to stick around and see what happens next. Those weren't the words of someone planning to disappear and cut contact with her family. And then there was Mom's behavior since March. I'd attributed her sadness to missing Emma, but now I was remembering other things. How she'd jumped every time the phone rang. How she'd started locking her bedroom door at night, something she'd never done before. How she'd suggested I start staying at my apartment more often instead of coming home for dinners. "You're 23, she'd said. "You need your independence." But the woman who'd been begging me to move back home after college was suddenly encouraging me to stay away. The woman who'd always said the house felt too empty without both her girls was now comfortable with being alone. As I stood in that kitchen, staring at my mother's guilty face surrounded by broken ceramic, I realized that everything I'd accepted as grief and adjustment had actually been the behavior of someone hiding something terrible. After Mom fled to her room claiming she had a migraine, I stood alone in that kitchen for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. The broken coffee mug at my feet seemed like a metaphor for everything that was falling apart. I started going through every photo on my phone from the past year. The evidence was overwhelming. Emma and I at the farmer's market in April, Emma helping me move furniture in May, the lake house trip in June where she'd laughed until she cried at my terrible karaoke. But then the photos stopped. Abruptly. The last one was from June 20th. Emma making bunny ears behind my head as I took a selfie by the lake. I called Emma's number. Straight to voicemail. But here's what made my skin crawl. The voicemail was her old message, from before she supposedly left. "Hey, you've reached Emma. Leave me something good." If Emma had really wanted to cut contact with family, wouldn't she have changed her voicemail? Or at least turned off her phone permanently? I tried calling Dr. Chen's office. The receptionist told me that Emma had missed her last several appointments without calling to cancel, starting in late June. They'd sent letters and made calls, but never heard back. Late June, right after our lake house trip. My hands were shaking as I made the next call. To Marcus, Emma's ex-boyfriend. We'd never been close, but I needed to know if he'd heard from her. "Emma?" Marcus sounded confused. I haven't talked to her since we broke up in February. But wait, didn't she move away months ago? Your mom told my mom she'd left for some kind of soul-searching trip. When did my mom tell your mom that? Um, Let me think. It was at the grocery store? I think it was March? Yeah, definitely March, because Mom mentioned it during my birthday dinner. So Mom had been telling people Emma was gone since March, even though Emma was clearly still here until at least June. Why would she lie about the timeline? I spent the rest of the day calling everyone I could think of. Emma's grad school friends, her co-workers at the campus bookstore, even her landlord. The story was always the same. No one had heard from Emma since late June, but everyone had been told by various sources that she'd left in March. It was like there had been a coordinated effort to rewrite history. But the most chilling discovery came when I called Emma's landlord, Mrs. Patterson. Emma had been renting a small apartment near campus, and I wanted to know when she'd moved out. "Oh, honey," Mrs. Patterson said, "your sister never moved out. Her rent is 3 months behind and all her stuff is still there. I've been trying to reach her or your mother for weeks." My blood went cold. Her stuff is still there? Everything. Clothes, books, even food in the refrigerator that's gone bad by now. It's like she just vanished one day. That night, I waited until Mom was asleep and crept into Emma's room. If she'd really left voluntarily, surely she would have taken some of her most important things, but her room looked exactly as it always had. Her favorite necklace, the one she never took off, was on her dresser. Her passport was in her desk drawer. Her summer clothes were still in her closet, clothes she would have needed if she'd really gone on some extended trip. And then I found something that made me sink to the floor in shock. Hidden under Emma's mattress was a small notebook, a journal. The last entry was dated June 21st, 2023, the day after our lake house trip. I finally told Mom about Dr. Chen's recommendation today, about the inpatient treatment program for my anxiety. She did not take it well. She got angry in a way I've never seen before. She said I was being dramatic, that I was trying to embarrass the family, but I think I need to go. I think it might save my life. I just need to convince her that this isn't about her. It's about me getting better. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in Emma's room, holding her journal, pieces of a horrifying puzzle slowly clicking into place in my mind. By the time Mom came downstairs for her morning coffee, I was waiting in the kitchen with the journal open in front of me. She stopped dead when she saw me sitting there. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Mom's eyes went to the journal, and I watched her face crumble. "Where did you find that?" "In Emma's room. The room of the daughter who supposedly left in March, but was actually still writing in this journal in June. The daughter whose rent is 3 months behind because she never actually moved out of her apartment." Mom sank into the chair across from me, suddenly looking years older. "Mom, where is Emma?" I I can't. This isn't." She was struggling to form words, her hands shaking violently. "I read her last journal entry, about the inpatient treatment program, about your reaction when she told you she wanted to go." Mom's face went white. She didn't understand. It wasn't necessary. I was helping her. I was taking care of her. Taking care of her how? My voice was rising now. By lying to everyone about when she disappeared? By telling people she left voluntarily when her journal shows she was planning to get help? She was going to leave us. Mom suddenly exploded, slamming her hand on the table. She was going to go to that place and fill her head with ideas about how I was the problem, how our family was toxic. I couldn't let them take her away from me. The admission hung in the air between us like a toxic cloud. "What did you do?" I whispered. Mom was crying now, ugly, desperate sobs. "I just wanted to keep her safe. I wanted to keep our family together." "What did you do?" I couldn't let her go to that place. So I put something in her tea, just to make her sleep, just so we could talk when she woke up, so I could make her understand that she didn't need strangers. She needed family. My heart stopped. You drugged her? It was just supposed to be for a few hours. Mom was wailing now. But she hit her head when she collapsed. There was so much blood, and she wouldn't wake up. And I panicked. The room started spinning. Where is she, Mom? Where is Emma? I tried to save her. I called 911, but it was too late. They said if I'd called sooner, maybe. But I was scared. I was so scared. You called 911? There's a record. No. Mom grabbed my hands across the table. I hung up before they answered. I couldn't let them take you away from me too. I couldn't let them break up what was left of our family. And that's when I finally understood the full horror of what had happened. My mother hadn't just accidentally killed my sister. She'd let her die, and then she'd spent months constructing an elaborate lie to cover it up, all while I grieved for a sister I thought had abandoned me. I don't remember much about the next few hours. I know I called 911. I know police cars and ambulances came, even though it was far too late for ambulances to help anyone. I remember sitting on the front porch, watching them carry Mom away in handcuffs, and feeling like I was watching my entire life disappear. In the span of 24 hours, I'd lost both my sister and my mother. Emma was dead, and Mom was going to prison. The police found Emma's body exactly where Mom said it would be, buried in our backyard, under the rose garden that Mom had suddenly decided to plant in July. The roses were beautiful, Mom had said. Emma would have loved them. The autopsy confirmed what Mom had confessed. Emma had died from blunt force trauma to the head, consistent with falling and striking the corner of our kitchen counter. The toxicology report showed sedatives in her system, Mom's prescription anxiety medication, crushed up and mixed into Emma's nightly chamomile tea. But here's what haunts me most. The coroner said Emma might have survived if Mom had called for help immediately, instead of panicking and trying to cover it up. My sister might still be alive if my mother had chosen honesty over self-preservation. The trial was devastating. I had to testify about finding the journal, about the lies Mom had told, about the months I'd spent believing Emma had abandoned us. The defense tried to paint Mom as a grieving, mentally ill woman who'd made a terrible mistake in a moment of panic. The prosecution called it what it was: voluntary manslaughter followed by months of calculated deception. Mom was sentenced to 12 years in prison. She kept trying to catch my eye during the sentencing, but I couldn't look at her. Every time I saw her face, I saw Emma's journal entry about wanting to get better, about choosing life and hope over anxiety and fear. Emma had been planning to save herself, and our mother had killed her for it. I had to plan Emma's funeral. Twice. Once was the memorial service we'd had in March, when we all thought she'd just disappeared. The second was her actual funeral, after we found her body. It was surreal. Mourning someone who'd already been mourned, burying someone who'd been missing for months. Dr. Chen came to the real funeral. She told me that Emma had been making tremendous progress, that she'd been excited about the inpatient program, that she'd specifically mentioned how much my support meant to her. She was going to get better, Dr. Chen said, holding my hands as I cried. She was so close to getting better. I sold the house. I couldn't live there anymore. Couldn't wake up every morning and see that kitchen counter. Couldn't look at the rose garden without thinking about what was underneath it. Some truths are too heavy for the places that hold them. It's been 8 months since I discovered the truth about Emma. 8 months since my world completely imploded and I had to rebuild everything from scratch. I'm in therapy now. With Dr. Chen, actually. She says I have survivor's guilt, that I blame myself for not seeing the signs earlier, for not pushing harder when something felt wrong. She's probably right. I wake up most mornings wondering what would have happened if I'd insisted on talking to Emma directly, if I'd gone to her apartment in March to check on her. But I'm also learning that some people are very, very good at lying. My mother spent months perfecting her story, creating a version of events that was just believable enough to keep me from asking the right questions. She knew exactly how to manipulate my love for Emma and my trust in her. The hardest part isn't the grief, it's the betrayal. I lost Emma twice. Once when I thought she'd abandoned me, and again when I learned she'd been dead all along. But I also lost my mother, the person who was supposed to protect both of us, who instead became the thing we needed protection from. I've started reading Emma's journal from the beginning, not the painful entries about her anxiety, but the earlier ones about her dreams, her plans, her hope for the future. She wanted to become a therapist herself someday, to help other people the way Dr. Chen had helped her. I think I understand now why some people call it mental health. She wrote a few months before she died. It's not just about not being sick. It's about being actively, intentionally healthy. It's about choosing to fight for your own life, even when that life feels impossible. Emma chose to fight for her life. She chose hope over despair, help over isolation, honesty over pretending everything was fine. And in her memory, I'm trying to make those same choices every day. It's the only way I know how to honor what she was trying to become, and the only way I can live with what she'll never get the chance to be. I keep wondering if I should have known something was wrong sooner. The signs were there: Mom's behavior, Emma's sudden disappearance, the inconsistencies in the timeline. But I trusted my mother completely. I never imagined she could be capable of something like this. Part of me feels guilty for not being a better sister, for not insisting on direct contact with Emma. But another part of me knows that my mother was deliberately manipulating the situation to keep me from discovering the truth. Did I fail Emma by trusting our mother? Should I have pushed harder when my instincts told me something was wrong? I'm sharing this story because I think there might be other families out there living with similar lies, other people whose instincts are telling them something is wrong but who are afraid to ask the hard questions. If this story helps even one person trust their gut and ask those questions, then maybe Emma's death won't have been completely senseless. What would you have done in my situation? Would you have trusted your family or your instincts? Share your thoughts, experiences, or advice in the comments below. Sometimes the conversations that happen after we share our stories are just as important as the stories themselves.